Welcome to Thriller Recaps. Today, I am explaining the movie, The Little Hour, explaining every scene as it happens. Watch till the end, and please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy this. The movie begins in a 14th century forest in Italy. Sister Fernanda, dressed in a full nun's outfit, is seen dragging a donkey behind her until they reach her convent, where she puts the donkey back into its stall. Sister Ginevra, another nun in the convent, finds her and asks how the donkey keeps getting free. She then questions why Fernanda is wearing her winter outfit even though it's already spring. The groundskeeper finds them and tries to greet them, but they scream at him, telling him never to greet them again. They head into the cathedral, where they pray with the other sisters and Father Tommaso. After the service, Mother Maria meets with Fernanda, asking why she didn't attend that morning's service. Fernanda gives her the excuse that the donkey escaped and she went to fetch it. Later, the sisters Ginevra and Fernanda speak about another sister, Alessandra, claiming she was only in the convent because her father donated money to it. When they're done with washing, they go their separate ways. Ginevra goes to report Sister Letizia to Mother for taking 2 portions. Alessandra gets visited by her rich father, who just dropped by to check on her and tell her about her marriage plans, which aren't going well because her father isn't ready to release money for her dowry. Later, the sisters take the body of Christ. Alessandra, Ginevra, and Fernanda then head out to the field, where the groundskeeper tries to greet them again. They physically assaulted him with vegetables and farming tools. Back at the convent, Father Tommaso gathers all of Alessandra's weaving with the intention of selling it in the market. It's lunchtime. The sisters are having lunch while Father Tommaso argues with the groundskeeper, who wants to quit his job because of the abuse he faced. Tommaso begs him to stay just long enough for him to return from the market, but he refuses. In a castle in Luigi, we see Lord Bruno having dinner with his wife, Francesca. He is excitedly speaking about finances and wars with other lands, and she is clearly irritated. She responds sarcastically to everything he says, and she keeps making eye contact with the manservant Massetto, who waits on them. Guards Gregorio and Paolo stand watch, obviously also tired of Lord Bruno's blabbing. Later in the evening, Francesca and Massetto are in bed, having just made love. She complains about how boring and awful her husband is. She complains about him talking a lot. Suddenly, she hears various noises and is scared he might walk in on them, but she also won't stop complaining about him. Massetto says she is just as bad as he is, only her complaining is about her husband's complaining. She says Massetto sounds just like her husband, and Massetto mounts her again, trying to make her shut up. They hear another noise, and this time it is, in fact, Lord Bruno entering the room. Massetto escapes through the window and runs back to the servants' quarters. Lord Bruno screams at his wife, who sarcastically tells him she's petrified. Bruno promises to deal with her later and goes out to find Massetto, but Massetto leaps into bed and pretends to be sleeping. Lord Bruno puts his hand on the chests of all of his servants and detects Massetto's increased heartbeat, but it is too dark to determine who he is, so he cuts off Massetto's ponytail and whispers quietly, "Now I will know who you are in the morning." After Lord Bruno leaves, Massetto cuts off the ponytails of all of the other servants. The servants wake up the following day surprised that they all have their ponytails cut. They all agree that a demon came in to cut their hair. Lord Bruno sees this and gets furious that he's been betrayed. The servants all get new haircuts, confused about what's going on. At breakfast, Lord Bruno continues to babble as his wife pays no attention to him and instead focuses on Massetto. She then tells him to stop speaking. Later in the day, Francesca corners Massetto in the garden and tries to initiate sex. She's totally unbothered about getting caught, and as a result, Lord Bruno sees them out in the open and sends his guards to accost Massetto, telling them to cut off his balls. Massetto is chased, and he flees into the forest. In the woods, Massetto stumbles upon Tommaso, who is drunk, and his cart has overturned, sending all of the fabrics into the rushing river. Tommaso tries to pick them up, and Massetto takes pity on him and tries to help. At first, Tommaso doesn't agree, but later he does, so Massetto gathers up the soaked fabrics. In return, Tommaso asks Massetto what he wants, and Tommaso offers him shelter for the night at the convent. Tommaso feeds Massetto, who eats hungrily, and the duo get drunk. Massetto confesses to sleeping with Lord Bruno's wife. They agree that he will take on the groundskeeper position, but he would have to pretend to be mute and deaf. The morning after, Tommaso introduces Massetto to Maria as the new groundskeeper. Tommaso also claims that he was robbed and that the thieves stole all the fabrics he was supposed to sell. Ginevra is seen with the donkey, which she pets. She sees Massetto groundskeeping and asks for his identity. Massetto says nothing since he's acting to be deaf and mute. She lets him be and leaves. Alessandra and Fernanda had a little argument that morning. In the midst of their argument, Massetto walks in and smiles at the girls before trying to continue doing his job. Fernanda asks for his identity and proceeds to pull a weapon on him. Alessandra immediately goes to get Maria. Mother Maria runs out to explain that Massetto is the new groundskeeper. She apologizes for not telling them earlier and begs Fernanda to give him a chance. Fernanda drops her weapon, and Mother Maria leaves. Fernanda then screams into Massetto's ear, telling him to get up. Ginevra sees this and reminds her that Massetto is deaf, but Fernanda doesn't listen. Later that day, Mother Maria informs Alessandra that her embroidery had been stolen when Father Tommaso was robbed. This breaks her heart, as she feels all her hard work has gone to waste. Mother Maria tries to make her feel better. Alessandra returns to her room to continue working, but she's lost interest and accidentally breaks her machine. She gives it to Massetto and asks him to fix it while she complains about her life in the convent. Ginevra sees Alessandra going into Massetto's room and watches patiently. Fernanda finds her and watches too, as Alessandra walks out. After the morning laud, Ginevra and Fernanda go to confess their sins. Later in the evening, Father Tommaso and Massetto drink wine together, and Massetto tells Tommaso about his first day at work. He seems to enjoy it and claims the sisters are interesting. That same evening, someone threw stones at Fernanda's window. It's her friend Marta, whom she lets in and dresses in a habit. The two lay in bed drinking sacrificial wine, and Alessandra joined them. Out of curiosity, Ginevra shows up and reluctantly drinks with them, though she knows it's the sacramental wine. The sisters sing while Marta watches them. She then asks Alessandra if she's ever been touched by a man. When Alessandra replies that she's never, Marta mentions that she has heard of a way to use belladonna to concoct a potion that will seduce men. They all get drunk, and Marta and Fernanda begin to kiss and grope each other. Ginevra is concerned but secretly interested, so they allow her to join in, but she is so drunk they must return her to her room. Ginevra and Fernanda have sex. In the morning, Alessandra goes to meet Massetto and gives him a piece of cloth she had made for him. She offers to help him dig and later removes her veil and kisses Massetto. They both fall to the ground, and Alessandra gets her robe dirty. She immediately comes back to her senses and goes to join the laud. Fernanda notices Alessandra's dirty nails and robe but says nothing. While Ginevra and Fernanda are doing laundry, Alessandra joins them, saying she wants to wash her veil. Fernanda asks her how her veil got so dirty. Alessandra tells them she was with Massetto. Alessandra later drops her cloth on Ginevra to help her with the washing. Fernanda does the same, and Ginevra is tasked with washing all the clothes. Later that morning, Marta and Fernanda go into the woods and create a belladonna potion. Marta warns her not to drink it. Marta puts 2 small drops of it into each of Fernanda's eyes. She cuts Fernanda's finger and uses the blood to rouge her cheeks. Ginevra hides nearby and witnesses all of this. Fernanda and Marta go into Massetto's living quarters and sexually assault him. They manage to get rid of his robes and fondle his genitals, kneeling down and smelling them. Fernanda mounts him and dry humps him. Ginevra goes closer to check the potion. She walks away immediately after seeing the contents. The women leave almost immediately, and Ginevra goes to confront them. She asks Fernanda if she's ignoring her and if the happenings of the previous night meant anything to her. Fernanda tells her they were just drunk and having fun. This seems to break Ginevra's spirits. That night, Massetto and Father Tommaso have wine together, and Massetto gives him an account of how work is going. The next day, Bishop Bartolomeo comes to visit the convent. Massetto sneaks into Alessandra's room, and they begin to have sex when an elderly nun enters the room, seeming not to notice. Alessandra doesn't notice at first, but when she does, she immediately gathers herself and goes over to sit by the older nun, and the two begin to embroider fabrics as Massetto hides under the bed. He attempts to sneak out the window until Tommaso, Maria, and Bartolomeo briefly enter the room as they tour around the convent. After they leave, he escapes, but in his shock, he briefly speaks. Ginevra confesses to Mother Maria that Fernanda had a friend over and has always been lying about the donkey escaping. That afternoon, Ginevra sees Massetto lying in the fields. She retreats to the wine cellar and makes her own potion, but she drinks it and begins to hallucinate. Alessandra goes to Massetto's quarters and confronts him about lying about his deafness and muteness. Outside, Ginevra violently cuts her hand and smears blood on her face. She bursts into Massetto's quarters, high on belladonna, and Alessandra leaps behind a wall to hide. Ginevra attempts to seduce him but doesn't know what she is doing, and then she realizes and confesses she is gay. Just then, Fernanda bursts in, and Ginevra leaps behind the same wall where Alessandra is hiding. Fernanda puts a knife to Massetto's throat, binds his hands, blindfolds him, and leads him away into the woods with the donkey. Ginevra and Alessandra follow and discover a coven of nude witches dancing around a bonfire. Massetto is tied to an altar, where Fernanda is again dry-humping him. They intend to kill him in a ritual sacrifice. Scared, Massetto speaks and begs them not to kill him. Ginevra, in her drug-induced state, joins in, gets naked, and starts screaming at and attacking the witches. Marta attempts to calm her down, but Ginevra hits Marta on the head with a huge totem stick. Alessandra intervenes and stops Fernanda from murdering Massetto. Massetto also begins to speak as the girls feel betrayed. Ginevra runs, nude and covered in blood, back to the convent and begins banging on everyone's doors, screaming for help. She bangs on Maria's door, who tells her she'll be out soon, and ultimately awakens Bartolomeo. The other sisters catch up with Ginevra, and everyone begins accusing each other of sins. Ginevra says Fernanda is a witch, and Fernanda reveals Ginevra is a lesbian, drunk, and Jewish. Though Ginevra denies these accusations, Bartolomeo isn't having any of them. Massetto also speaks again, surprising everyone. Just then, Tommaso and Maria emerge from her bedroom, and it is clear that they were having sex. The next morning, everyone is forced to confess to Bartolomeo, where he reads out the list of their numerous sins and offenses. He is a bit annoyed and punishes Ginevra by not allowing her to eat for 1 year. They are all given penance, and Tommaso's priesthood is stripped, and he is sent away to be a monk at a monastery. Massetto is sent back to the castle of Lord Bruno, where he is imprisoned. The convent doesn't remain the same. Father Tommaso is replaced by an older man who can't give the body of Christ to them without shaking. The sisters are also denied lunch, and so is Sister Maria. Later in the afternoon, the sisters sit out in a field of flowers and apologize for betraying one another. Fernanda then asks Ginevra to join her coven, and she agrees, but they all worry about Massetto's safety. Back in prison, Lord Bruno tells Massetto he is going to keep him there and alive for as long as possible, slowly torturing him with rats. He says he has sealed Francesca up in a wall with a boar and a dog, as she turned out to be from an enemy village in Baron, but he has a new wife who will be a better lover once she reaches puberty. When he leaves, Massetto pleads with Paolo and Gregorio, the other servants, to free him, but they refuse and instead mock and tease him. A turtle, brought by the nuns as a form of distraction with a candle on its back, walks by, and the guards follow it in wonder. Alessandra, Ginevra, and Fernanda appear and free Massetto. They leave a dummy in his place and dress him in a nun's habit so they can take him to the convent without getting spotted. They're able to escape the castle together. The guards return but don't notice that Massetto has been switched. Out in the woods, Maria is taking the donkey to meet with Tommaso. They embrace and confess their love for one another. Tommaso tells her about his new life as a monk. Just then, the sisters come running by with Massetto, so Tommaso and Maria duck and hide. Running by, Fernanda stops and sees the donkey standing alone. She stares at it curiously for a lingering moment until Ginevra grabs her, urging her to continue with them. They run off into the woods. When they leave, Tommaso and Maria share a kiss as they laugh excitedly. Subscribe for more daily videos. Your support, likes, shares, and subscriptions mean a lot. See you in the next video.